As we wind up 2023 and now head into 2024, another year, but what a year it has been. There are various points of conversation, various points of reflection, inflection that one can do. But what are the places where the collated puzzle picture is leading to some structural change, where promises and tokenism and hopes and wishes and dreams are actually seeing the quote unquote progress? Have we made progress? Are things different at the end of the year as they were at the beginning? What was achieved? And what does that set up for the huge momentum build for the year coming and the year after that and the year after that? Sometimes generational shifts happen. Sometimes paradigm shifts happen. Are we witnessing it? Let's open this up for conversation. Over the next 1 hour in this special year-ending telecast, we are going to be examining the impact on India's women. Let us bring it up on our screens for a point of conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, have a look at this. This is what we did to unleash Nari Shakti. The top 10 which we've put together. Your 10 might be different or dissimilar, but from the women's quota which was hanging fire for 3 decades, which has been passed and will be soon implemented, to this fascinating scheme of the Lakhpati Didis, to the reality that nearly 6 million women now have a house in their name or jointly owned by them under the Awas Yojana, to the fact that the Ujjwala Yojana is now crossing the 11 crore mark. Imagine that. Now we can debate it, we can argue it. Is everything perfect? Maybe, maybe not. But the reality is that a huge number of millions are seeing benefits. Cent percent, of course, remains. Saturation remains the dream. Have a look at this. These are the women giving the thumbs up. Scientists who led the Chandrayaan mission that landed on the south pole of the moon. Have a look at this. The Chandrayaan landing was, of course, the culmination, but it's the entire journey that leads up to it. Have a look at this. The first woman commanding a naval warship has happened in 2023. Lieutenant Commander Prerna Deosthale. Captain Gitika Kaul became the first person to be operationally deployed at Siachen in 2023 after having gone through the Siachen Glacier Battle School. Believe it or not, the women participation in India's labor force is now at record levels. And we know the statistics are difficult to come by in this country, but even they are seeing a change, a shift taking place, which is driving impact. Now, the question, of course, is what is that change? How is it happening? Now, have a look at this very interesting thing that has just come to light. As part of a government scheme, 15,000 women-led self-help groups have been given drones. So they get the drones from the scheme, and then they can lease out the drones to the farmers. They have a little sprout at the bottom. This is for spraying the crops in the field, and it becomes a point of income. So think of all the micro Mudra loans. Think of all these schemes, the Lakhpati Didis schemes, the drone scheme which you're seeing on your screen. All of them are adding up. Look at it. Nearly 70% of the total loan sanctions of Mudra have been women. Okay? And that's not 1 million, 2 million. Even that would be a huge number. You're talking about tens of millions. Nearly 200 million Indian women have received a microfinance loan under Jan Dhan Mudra. 200. The scale of what is changing sometimes become difficult to digest. This is 3 times the population of the UK of women have received the micro loan in India. Not all of it in 2023, but the record levels have been reached in 2023. Similarly, have a look at this. The toilets that are being built in houses, primarily, of course, benefiting the women members of the house who face the greatest difficulty. Now, I can continue this list. We can talk about the taps that have had record levels, the Sukanya scheme, which is hitting record levels. But this sort of gives you a juxtaposition of developments that have moved away from tokenism now into practice. Let me now, on that note, open up this conversation. Joining us on the broadcast, Joyita Basu, the editor of the Sunday Guardian, is with us. Sumitra Goenka is with us as well. Rajalakshmi Joshi joining us on the broadcast, and Mithali Nikor on the broadcast with us as well. So now let me take it one by one as we have some time to discuss this. First of all, Joyita, your overall impression now. I know we've drawn up the list. There are many more things can be added, deleted to the list. But what do you make of the list? Women's reservation in Parliament. We are talking about Lakhpati Didis. We are talking about the women behind the Chandrayaan mission. We are talking about the Mudra loans. We are talking about, I can continue. I can talk about the women who have won on the sports field in a record number. Medals have come in for women. The women under 19 Cricket World Cup win was achieved this year. A lot of things has transitionally happened. What do you make of the overall picture?
I think it's very encouraging, Rishabh. Especially even though the parliament did not till now has about, I think, 10 or 15% of women representation, that is going to change eventually. And the kind of development that we are seeing, the kind of progress that we are seeing when it comes to women, it's really encouraging because you see, I think what is going to happen is that with the push that is coming from the government in terms, and specifically Mr. Modi, in terms of this, this enhancing what he calls Nari Shakti, it is also having an effect on the grassroots, and that is very important. Women from educated, maybe urban households, they have it much easier. Now, when it actually, the change is actually being observed at the grassroots. So when we are looking at things like we are looking at the poorest of poor segment, until and unless development percolates down to that level, a country, however progressive its women can be, however progressive and scientifically minded and research oriented a country can be, unless and until the development percolates down to the ground level, everything becomes futile beyond a point of time. The gap increases. But interestingly, what we are witnessing, I was just, reading up some statistics and all, and not necessarily Niti Aayog, even other, So what it seems, the gap between the haves and the have-nots seems to be reducing. And in this, our role is being played by the women because awareness is coming to the ground and their life. Okay, we still have a very long way to go because you see, still there are women who are going to, getting water from miles away. But in spite of all that, a push for development, a push to teach your daughter, a push to send her to college, maybe ensure that she gets a job and not just gets married at the age of 14 or 15, that push had started coming from the ground. And this is something, a significant improvement, I would say, that has taken place over the last 10 years, and everything is related. It starts with Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, it goes into areas like Ujjwala Yojana, Mudra loan, everything is related. So it's like a system where the system is kind of, I would say, reinventing itself, and that's very important.
Okay. Let me put the same thought to Sumitra Goenka. Sumitra, the conceptualization of, look, you can't just do tokenism. You have to have a vision. You have to have a plan. There has to be some logic behind the plan. And then you have to enact it. And as you enact it, the problems you see, the experiences that you gain, you fine tune it, make it better until you see some real change. And in India, you can't do it. You can't say that, okay, 10 people, 20 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. It has to be done for momentum to build at the scale of millions. Are we seeing it being done? Are we seeing a momentum change, a paradigm change?
So, Rishabh ji, thank you for taking up this topic. See, I think you talked about why we are thinking in these lines. So, I think one of the important things you have to understand here is women of India contribute around 18% to the GDP, whereas the population of women in India is around 48% of the total population. So if we are planning to become a major economy, 5 trillion, 10 trillion economy in the days to come, the participation of women in the workforce or in the GDP has to significantly grow. And if the participation of women increases to up to 30% or so, or 35% compared to 18% what it is today, then we will see a very fast growth. So today, most of the work which women do in rural areas, especially, they are not being rewarded, or they are not even considered into the GDP factor. This is one of the important things we have to understand. Secondly, whatever contribution of work they are doing, the money goes, if at all there is some earning, the money goes to the husband. So the first thing which Prime Minister Modi did was to create these Jandan accounts, where the women got their own bank accounts, and if there was any direct benefit transfer which was coming, it was coming into the woman's account. So this was one of the very important things which happened. Along with that, I think this year in totality has been a year of many firsts for women. So somebody, I think Joyita just spoke about the participation of women in Indian Parliament. It is roughly around 14%. But if you look at the global average, it is around 26%. But if you look at even the state assemblies in India today, at some places it is less than 4%. If you look at Northeast India, etc., it is less than 4%. So women reservation bill was a landmark thing which was brought into India, and I think it has led the way ahead for many other countries, because unless women come into the policy making space and in the decision making space, leadership roles, starting from the Indian Parliament, what more can be a leadership role for a democratic setup? So once women start doing this, then after that, I think their participation across will come through. Secondly, the policies which will come for India, that will be also more women centric or child centric, because today we don't have enough women who are making policies, whereas population of 48% is women in India. So these are some of the things I think which were thought, and then several schemes were brought in which were targeted towards women who became the actual beneficiaries here. There could be some very simple things like building toilets or giving houses, or you talked about the gas connections, Ujjwala Yojana, the water pipelines which have reached to the last mile in several cases. But there are some significant things which have also happened. Like, I want to highlight one is the female pilots. If you look at the global average, India
Yes.
today has the highest number of female pilots, which is around 15%. Recently, Group Captain Shaliza Dhami, she was made the commander of the front line for the Indian Air Force. So that is a very big achievement, because women were not typically seen in this role. Then we have at Siachen, Captain she was deployed at Siachen again, which is a very hot zone, and women were typically not sent here, and she is sent there. Women athletes, they are making us proud, and almost 50% awards are coming from women athletes. And very important thing is the participation of women has now become 37% in the labor workforce. So that is a very significant achievement which has risen from around 23% to 37%. So I think all these things are going to make a difference, and 58% of the Jan Dhan account holders are women right now. So we have to understand how it is creating an economy in itself by empowering women in the true sense, and not just making promises of freebies, but actually delivering and empowering to the women of India.
Okay, all right. Let me quickly now get in a thought from Rajalakshmi Joshi. Rajalakshmi Joshi, let's get an overall picture. Okay, what is your assessment? We've drawn up a list. It's not an exhaustive list. For the sake of convenience, it's 10 things that have happened or have reached their peak at in 2023 in the past 365 days. What do you make of it?
Good afternoon, Rishabh. And, it is so nice to see this kind of a discussion happening, and with some lovely women here, and that too on the last day of 2023. So it's a very good time to be introspecting about what happened and how we have actually come up, and come so many leaps and bounds ahead, in this year particularly. So, what I feel is that there has definitely been a complete shift in the mindset of a lot of women, especially. See, starting from the concept of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao that PM Modi ji brought about, from there itself, because earlier the very first battle was the battle for a female to be allowed to be born. So from there, that battle has started, and that very first thing has changed, and that actually that was the first thing that appealed to me, when PM Modi spoke about Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, and then he went on with, he kept giving all these mottos of Beta Beti Ek Saman, and he brought in this shift to talk about a girl child as not as an as a liability but as an asset. So that thing where women feel that they are self-empowered. See, he has stopped talking about women empowerment. He talks about women-led development. So that kind of an mindset, that kind of a shift in the mindset, that was something that was missing in all these years. So, a lot of the previous governments, they talk about how all these things were copied from the past, etc. But I have never heard this kind of a concept being maybe promoted or even spoken about. So this was not something definitely that was taken up on this huge scale. See, now you yourself have put up on your statistics about how 69% of the Mudra Yojanas, they were given to women. And also, 84% of this concept, the initiative of Stand Up India, that also was given to women.
No,
So
Stand Up
almost one
India,
lakh.
Khelo India. I mean, you can take it, keep
Yes.
taking it further.
So 1,77,000 women entrepreneurs got an initiative, got the benefit, and they were able to become women entrepreneurs, and they became self-sufficient. So that, I mean, 1,77,000 women entrepreneurs is not a small number. So this kind of a shift in the attitude, this kind of a shift in the mindset, that is something that actually women started feeling that they are not definitely dependent on somebody else. So, we have had this in our culture for the longest ever. We have been hearing this thing about Nari Shakti. We have been hearing about how women are goddesses. But then, why was this lack in women actually themselves feeling this Shakti? We had to be reminded. So, PM Modi reminded us that
Okay.
we are definitely empowered. So, we don't need.
Okay. I'm going to come into the larger context very, very quickly. Mithali, your quick thoughts on, we put together a list of 2023 achievements. It can be more. Your quick thoughts on the list.
Thanks a lot, Rishabh, for having me on the show, and I completely echo everyone's thoughts. It is refreshing to have a leadership, and of course PM Modi, but also Smriti Irani. An outspoken and very strong minister for women and child development who has gone and prioritized the things that we need. And what I really love about the ministry and about the openness of the ministry at this point is that they are willing to listen to where things are challenging and problematic. So one of the areas, for example, I want to highlight, which has not yet been spoken about, is the care economy. Everyone understands that today in India, the gender gaps in unpaid care work are extremely skewed, and women are doing almost 10 times the amount of unpaid work as men. But the ministry, having understood this point, has introduced the Palna scheme. I was, in fact, there at the launch, and they are now setting up 17,000 childcare centers at Anganwadis across the country to provide these childcare services to women. We are now working on a policy, on a public-private partnership policy to expand the reach of these care services.
Yeah.
So, this kind of mindset and the leadership is what is really important.
Okay. So now let's pick it up on a larger premise. Joyita, so the theoretical part of it behind the practice. Let me just emphasize that. You want to empower women, okay, but you've been struggling for decades and decades. You want to ensure things like the sex ratio improves, the health, maternal, fetal, children's health improves. You know that all the developmental indicators tell you that more educated women means healthier families, that women who earn spend on their families, that women are more likely to spend on education, spend on health, that the economic indicators of entire areas grows up and the welfare part of the economy does a lot better. You have this scientific study. Then you have to apply theory that, look, what is the problem? If we go and ensure that the woman in the household becomes a principal bread earner, that the property is in her name, that the schemes are being received in her name, that the micro loans are available to her, that opportunities for creating small businesses are available to her. This is how you're going to do the game changer, and then you implement it, and of course you learn along the way. Joyita, at least in practice, in theory, are we now heading in the right direction, that we've got the A and B together?
Yes, definitely, because when you are looking at a household and the woman's role there, it's gradually what happens, in less educated households and perhaps in the villages, in the rural areas. What happens is that women are more often than not, they have to play a role where the husband or the family takes precedence over what a woman. It's not just, about what she earns. I mean, she doesn't perhaps earn also at times, but from what she eats, the food that she is given, or she kind of eats herself, leaving the best for her husband and her children, possibly her sons. Now that is where the mindset change has to come. So when you are looking at theory, I mean, theoretically, when you are looking at it, it's about empowering the woman, making her conscious of her rights, making her realize that she is an equal member of a household. And if she has certain things in her name, what happens is, you see, that automatically gives her some power over what the family will want, what the family will get. You see, these things really matter. So when you are looking at it in a broader perspective, yes, it's about mindset change that has to come in, awareness about how women's health is important.
Okay, let me pick this up quickly. I'm just quickly referring and getting some things in action for our next telecast as well. Now let's take it up step by step of the 10 points that we've mentioned. Rajalakshmi Joshi, you begin on this. 33% quota for women. Okay, we've been discussing it for decades in principle. In principle, everybody agrees with it, but nobody did it. Now it's been done. Okay. Now we can argue, of course, why it wasn't being done, but now that it's been done, come another 2 years or 2.5 years, what is the fundamental change? Because you're talking about empowerment, okay? Empowerment by definition means people who are in power. Here you are, women who will be in power. Help us understand that.
Yes, Rishabh, that is such a groundbreaking, complete game changer. Because, I have always felt that women need to be writing their own rules also, because it obviously there need to be more women who need to be there as a part of the law making process. So you cannot just depend on somebody else to be understanding your situation and then making the rules for you. So so there is this very feeble percentage of women right now who are actually representing the women, and it is I wouldn't say that it is actually right now the mistake of the men also, because women also need to come out into active politics and be a part of the they have to understand.
No,
they
but
have to have
Sumitra Goenka, that's exactly the chicken and egg problem, right? And I'll tell you, okay, so cricket 50, 60 years ago wasn't really a career in which you could make a livelihood. So therefore, everybody said, become an engineer, become a doctor. Now, I'm sure there were talented cricketers in the 50s and 60s. Many more could have come out. Many more could have joined cricket. But they didn't get the opportunities. So it's also about creating opportunities. So are we sorting out this chicken and egg in the highest realm of power when it comes to the 33% quota?
I just wanted to finish a point.
Yeah,
Rishabh.
finish your
Can I
point.
just
Yeah,
finish?
go ahead, please.
Yes. Yes. So, what I feel is that right now, the doors have been open for this situation where women now know that they have this opportunity for them ahead of them in another, say, maybe 2 years, 3 years. So then, now women who have actually been active, say maybe on, they have been counselors, they have been in, some other, very active politics, but they are not yet ready to actually compete or to contest, say maybe an MLA or an MP election. So now they can actually prepare the ground and they can make sure that they will definitely be recognized, not just in areas where there is a women reservation, but also, say maybe like in Amethi, there was no women reservation,
Yeah.
but then nobody could have denied Smriti Rani
No,
ji.
I mean, come on. No. In the anecdotal unitary examples, of course, we've had women prime ministers, we've had women presidents. That's not the thing. It's about en masse. In quantity, the percentage numbers tell you that if the fair representation is 50% plus minus, you haven't been able to go past 20%, and you need to provide a solution to the chicken and egg scenario. So, Mitra Goenka, quickly on women's reservation.
Yeah, so Rishabh, I think that if you want to really improve the participation of women in politics, then the consciousness of getting these women into politics was very important. And we were talking and discussing about this. See, in India, we have had a woman prime minister, we have had a woman president, we have had several women as chief ministers as well. So it was not a new thing. But if you look at the entry barriers, especially there, it was very difficult, and people like women would never choose politics as a profession. Very few women would choose politics as a profession if they don't have that kind of a family background or the kind of environment or a godfather type of a situation, I would say. And it was not considered to be a zone where women would step in. It was not considered, maybe even respectful to some extent. And it was considered that okay, if the woman is a little dabang type, then the person should become a politician. That was the kind of concepts which people had. And if anybody said that I want to become a politician, people would say, why politician? I mean, you don't have anything better to do. So this is some mindset which needed a change. And I think now with this reservation bill coming in, I think that mindset has now opened up, and women will take up more positions,
Okay.
as well as these political.
Okay. We have 10 points to go through, so I'm
organizations
going to be quick. Mitali, quickly on women's quota.
So thanks a lot, Rishabh. And I think we're talking about chicken and egg. Basically, we are talking about ecosystems, right? We are talking about ecosystems for women to come and participate, whether in politics or in economics, anywhere, any field of life. You need some enabling provisions for that. Now, what are those enabling provisions? Just give me a minute and I'll put this down. Your first one is the care economy. You are spending most of your time today on unpaid care work. So you need a whole care economic system, infrastructure, services for childcare, elderly care, long-term care, because a lot of your time in the day as a woman is going on care. Second, you need safety. You need safety when you're commuting to your workplace. Like Sumitra said, if you're a dabang type of person, or you're going to, like a village area or an area where the, mobility is not good, there's no transport available, and you're stuck there at 10 p.m. at night, your safety is threatened. You need to work on safety. That's the second. And the third is you need to bridge the digital divide, because all the different politicians, whether they are trying to enter and campaign for themselves and put their message out, need to work on social media as well as traditional media.
Okay.
And secondly, as a woman entrepreneur also, you need access to the digital systems.
Okay.
So once these three come together, you can have an ecosystem that works.
No. So everything has to be developed. These are not guarantees that the system is sorted. These are progressive measures, and you have to argue, are they progressive measures or not? Now, like I said, we have 10 points to go through. Joyita, I'm going to pick up on something that's not often discussed, because we discuss things that immediately impact parliament, but there's a scheme called Lakhpati Didis. Now, we want to bring structural change. The structural change has to come in India's villages. Now the scheme is very simple. The scheme is, what is the micro intervention that can be done in the case of about 7 to 8 million rural women, that they can, for themselves as individuals and as small groups, secure a personal net income of ₹1 lakh a year. Now in cities, ₹1 lakh a year does not seem like a lot of money. But in a rural setting, for a woman to be earning and be empowered with ₹1 lakh a year, okay, which is just under 10,000 rupees a month, adds up. Joyita, now are we getting, like I said, the interventions right that give them financial empowerment?
Yes, Rishabh, when you are looking at 10,000 rupees or maybe even 8,000 rupees, which a woman is earning per month, that's a huge amount in rural areas. I mean, I know of households, from Bengal where people come where a whole household will earn 4,000 to 5,000 rupees a month, and automatically they are displaced, they migrate and they become laborers in the cities, they become maid servants. So this is something. So for a woman to earn 7 or 8,000, she can feed her whole family for a month. She is the main bread earner. And if you add the husband income to it, they are prosperous. So when you're looking at extreme poverty situations, and there is still a lot of people, I think about 14% or 14.5%, something like that, people are in extreme poverty. Now from that ground level up, if you can empower them, even that Lakhpati women scheme really matters.
Okay, so now I'm going to add to that, okay, and let's pick up number 3, because I mentioned Lakhpati Didis. Sumitra going to come on this, on Lakhpati Didis, okay. Now, not as grandiose as women's quota in parliament, but we are talking about targeting 7 million rural women. It's about creating some sort of local employment or local business, okay, and the drones can be a part of it, okay. We are looking at very practical solutions that need to be found now. The question is how? Are we now understanding that financial empowerment is the key to real empowerment?
Absolutely. So I would like to stress here that when we talk about such schemes which are finally reaching the last mile, we are talking about the Antodaya concept, which Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji had enumerated very clearly. So here it is about the rural livelihoods, and under this drone program also I will come to, but I think this Lakhpati Yojana, there were around 742 districts which got covered and 7091 blocks, and around 9.54 crore women, they were got into several lakhs of self-help groups. Now self-help groups in itself also has a capacity to generate some exchange programs, or they also have some scope for generating employment within themselves, because it's kind of a networking thing also which happens internally. And secondly, the drone program, this is a phenomenal thing, because they have said that around 15,000 per month will be paid to a drone operator who is a female, and her assistant will get around 10,000 per month.
Yep.
And they will be covering an area of around 1,000 hectares for the pesticides and other activities.
Yes.
So this is a very, very good scheme, because the women will be saving on time and energy, because this is very hard work. Whole day you have to be in the sun, you cannot take care of your children, but here it is ease of business.
Okay, all right, like I said, my time is short and we have 10 schemes to go through. Raja Lakshmi Joshi, let me hop across then to Awas Yojana. Now let's look at the numbers, okay. The numbers are now touching 6 million nearly. Now the important fact is that the government comes up with a scheme that is actually to build houses, okay. Houses are not particularly about gender, but with a realization that the large part of financial empowerment of everyone, you and me included, is the property value of the house that you live in. Now in all of these, cent per cent, in the cases where there is a woman in the house, she is either the owner or the joint owner, which means that no property transaction can be undertaken without the consent of the woman, okay. You can argue this, that the reality is that they can say you put angutha here and sign here, and patriarchy doesn't end that easily. Of course it doesn't, but at least somebody else cannot sign over without your knowledge. So is this something fundamentally important, Rajalakshmi Joshi?
Yes, definitely, Rishabh. Again, this is another big game changer. So it gives a roof on the woman's head. It gives her security. It gives her safety. A physical safety also, and an emotional security also. And apart from that, there is this awareness now that definitely, like you said, somebody can't make that transaction without her knowledge and without her approval also. So yes, there are definitely cases where she will be threatened, she will be intimidated, all of that will be there. But then at least there is one barrier that somebody will have to cross in order to do that. So earlier that barrier was not there. Earlier,
Okay.
that it was much easier. So you're making it a little more difficult for somebody to
Okay.
be able to do that
Okay,
without
so
her knowledge.
let's look at the figures. Let me pick up the next one, because it is all adding up. There is no obviously one stop solution, but it's all adding up. So now let's Joyita, look at Ujjwala. Now I know there are lots of criticisms of Ujjwala, that not every cylinder reaches on time, and not the entire aspect cannot be seen in the headline number of 10 or 11 crore. But that's never going to happen. I have 100 electric bulbs. Oftentimes something is fused and has to be changed. That's part of life. So it's a fallacious argument. But in the larger scheme, that we are now talking about millions of women who have the basic as access to not only the gas cylinder, but of course the change in the environment that it causes within the home. How much of that really impacts?
It's a huge impact, but because when food is being, because it's ultimately the women, the wives and the daughters who are involved in making dinner and lunch and breakfast. Now they are always in kind of open flames, open stoves, their firewood, gobar, that thing that they used for cow dung. So all these sources of fuel are very harmful because it causes domestic pollution, and the women are directly exposed to it. Now, the minute you are substituting that, the minute that they're replacing that with gas, what happens? That huge health factor, kind of that health hazard that comes from using open sources of fire like that, comes down. So that automatically there's a huge improvement. Number two, that happens, in the villages, when women, they have to go out to collect firewood. Maybe they have to travel half a kilometer or a kilometer. So automatically there's the safety angle of the woman, the safety angle, that is very helpful to women. So in terms of safety, in terms of security, Ujjwala is a huge boon for women, but yes, the price point is a problem.
Okay.
So as a result of which the government has been reducing, and I think
Okay.
right now,
So when you want to split hairs, in Hindi is called nukta chini. When you want to split hairs, okay, and you can continuously have the argument, okay, that why, if it's cooking, why does that empower women? Men should cook. You're right, okay, but the practical world is telling you, and this point, when you build a toilet, yes, the men can also use the toilet, okay, but if the toilet is built primarily in houses in which there are women members, the primary beneficiaries are going to be those women, okay. So you can split hairs on it, okay, that of course the men are also benefiting the toilet. Yes, they are, okay, but the actual life change is coming to the women by the construction of that particular toilet. So this is where it adds up. Okay, let's take it a step forward, okay, to the next point in our point of conversation, which is women scientists. Mitali, why don't you come in on this? Because it's not. I've taken the example of ISRO because that was the most recent and most high-profile example. But it's across the board. You know that in the vaccine development programs that have been taking place in companies now, in universities now, we are seeing project leadership being done, entire teams of women operating. And here you've seen the photograph of women in traditional attire in their saris giving a thumbs up, and heck, they put something on the moon.
Yeah, absolutely, Rishabh. And why not in a sari? Sari is my favorite garment as well. And I think, the beautiful thing that has happened over the last few decades, and especially hastened in the last one decade, is that India has been able to close a lot of gender gaps in education. And it starts at primary education, right? I mean, you cannot become a scientist unless you go to a primary school. So we now have gender parity indices telling us that more and more girls are actually enrolling in primary and secondary schools, even more than the boys. They have a higher completion rate. They have higher, better educational outcomes, more marks, more toppers. And in the tertiary education level as well, we have closed that gender gap. India is producing nearly 48% of STEM graduates in India are women, which is close to parity. And they are going to, these highly skilled training institutes, they are going abroad, studying, coming back, working here, and contributing to the scientific development in India and outside,
Okay.
and from outside to India.
Okay,
so that's the kind of
yeah, so
leadership
Mitra
we are
Goenka,
seeing in this.
women in STEM is a global challenge. It's not just an Indian challenge. Okay, now we are taking, of course, anecdotal examples. Okay, but in taking the anecdotal examples, these women didn't join ISRO yesterday, no, or 1 week before. They've been working for a long period of time. And when they succeed, then we get to see the examples of their success, okay, and we get to celebrate it with them. So the trajectory, the example of this is that the trajectory is not just government scheme and government will do, is the overall trajectory of all of us together combined. When you see these anecdotal examples and you're saying, you know what, yeah, it's a lot different than it was 20 years ago.
Absolutely. For ISRO, I just want to add one more thing, that it's a symbolic thing which I think will help us. One is like this point is also known as a Shiv Shakti point. It's not just name a point after a god, it's a Shiv Shakti point, which also signifies the participation of women. What you said is right, Rishabh, and we have seen that, in countries like USA, there is a diversity factor. Like they have around 35% mandate to hire women in STEM, and it is the operation by itself to do and complete these recruitments, as well as have 35% of businesses run by women support the larger organization. So this is kind of a mandatory procedure in US, but it is still not that deeply percolated inside India. But yes, if you look at the STEM sector, because many of the organizations are now having clients which are based out of US or UK, I think somehow this thing is now coming back to India, and we are seeing more and more participation also. At the same time, the education of women up to the standard 12 is almost free, or I think even after 12th standard to some extent. So that is also encouraging more and more women to participate. And of course, we are seeing these examples across the board where
the examples help.
Are removed
So the
now.
Examples help. They help families. Okay.
Yes.
They help people making career choices, because remember this: the average age of India is 29. Okay. So these are people who are just making graduate and postgraduate decisions, is the vast majority of the country. Okay. So that decision making is happening right now as we speak. Okay, let's pick up the next point, and I'll pick it up with Rajalakshmi Joshi. Women in the armed forces. Now, we have taken the anecdotal example of the first naval captain that has happened in 2023. We've taken the example of the first deployments in Siachen that happened in 2023. Now, we're not talking about vast numbers here, Rajalakshmi Joshi. We're only talking about anecdotal examples, but are we breaking some chains?
Yes, definitely. Rishabh, when a woman needs to be accommodated, or she needs to be given an opportunity to lead. So at that time, there are a lot of facilities also that need to be a part of the entire organization. So, like for example, in your newsroom, if you need if women are to be there as a part of it, they also need some facilities, like a simple thing is of a toilet. So all these kind of things are definitely, they have now become a part and parcel of every organization, and all these organizations have started making all these kind of structural changes. So then that is why it is definitely easier for women to be a part of it, participate wholeheartedly, and then without any such issues.
The thing is,
So
because we haven't had large scale, okay, women participation in armed forces, we are unable to conduct studies, and hopefully the studies will now come out of India, perhaps even elsewhere, that what is then the impact, the sociological, the mindset, the tactical, the strategic, the organizational impact that women in the armed forces actually have. Joyita, quick thoughts on women in the armed forces. We've had a few firsts this year.
Yeah. When we're talking about women in the armed forces, we have to see whether how much they are in active combat roles, because women have been there in the armed forces for a long time, but mostly in non-combat areas.
Yeah. So obviously Siachen active combat role. Okay. By definition, if you're a naval ship captain, even if it's not a flagship destroyer, it's an active combat role. So we're seeing a few firsts in that direction.
Yes, I think so. This is where the change is coming in, because you see that mindset again, the mindset has to change within the military itself, because the very fact that you're not going to regard a woman as somebody who is not physically strong enough to participate in something, but at least, even if you're looking at that, while you may not want a woman to become like a Jawan in the protecting the, of course, there are women who are doing it already,
yeah.
But yes, give them certain concessions, allow them to use their brain power, use their experience, natural intelligence. A lot can be done.
Okay. So, Mithali, I want to pick up.
Can I add a point here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So here, one important point is the women are now, girl students are now allowed in the Sainik schools, which was earlier not happening. Also, one very important thing which has happened, I think, day before yesterday only, IPS Neena Singh is the first CISF woman chief.
Yeah.
Which is the first in the armed forces, I think.
Yeah, you have now Lieutenant General, but I've been trying to put out the list and you've added to it from 2023. Okay, Mithali, I wanted to take up the next point with you. Now, labor force participation. It's jumped just about 4.5 percentage points from 32.5 to 37%. It was 23% in 2017. So between 2017, that means if there are 100 workers, only 23 were women and 77 were men. In the past 5 to 6 years, that has now changed, and it has changed significantly. Significant jump up has happened of almost 5% in 1 year, which means that 37 out of every 100 workers in the country is now a woman. Now, what is that indicating to us?
So, Rishabh, actually, the labor force participation rate is defined a little differently. So, what essentially 37% means is that 37% of working age women, that is women between
are now employed. Yes, correct.
Are now employed, which is great, right? We love this. We love that this is happening, because if you saw my research points out that from 1987 to 2017, 5 decades, we had a falling labor force participation rate for women. Continuous fall. And that was driven largely by an exodus of rural women who moved out of the labor force. And now in the last 5 years, we are seeing a huge increase. We are seeing the increase from 23% to 37% today. So firstly, what has driven this trend, right? The first driver of this trend is actually a change, and a positive change in the methodology of collecting the information on labor force participation. A lot of women who were working in their agricultural farms were not being counted in the labor force previously. They were working, but they were not categorized as workers. That has happened now. That correction has happened now, and that's one of the changes we are seeing. Second thing, we are seeing a huge increase in one particular category of workers, which is postgraduate urban women. So the entire increase in urban India is actually driven by that postgraduate urban women category who are working in the services sector. Previously, they were clustered in 2 or 3 job roles and sectors in education and health.
Yeah.
Your nurses and your teachers. You were seeing a lot of women there. Now, you are starting to see the management schools come out with a lot of women, engineers, STEM graduates, as we were talking about. So that has been driving this entire increase in the urban graduate and postgraduate.
So let's just do back of the envelopes mathematics. The reason I'm saying back of the envelope, because there will be overlaps here. Okay, so it's not absolutist that these are separate segments of people, but 37% of around 50% of the population, and the sex ratio is just under that. It's improved a lot, by the way, which is another achievement in 2023. So we're talking about 260 million employed women in the country, okay, at about 37%, all right. We've given about 250 million women Mudra loans. Now, assume for a second, for point of conversation, that these were individual subsets and there were no Venn diagram overlapping over here, okay. So 259 million with jobs, another 250 million, that's 500 million, another 7.5 million, assuming that this is a separate subset, with targeted from Lakhpati Didis, which means that they have their own employment, which is what a corollary or a parallel to the Mudra loan initiative. You are then getting into large numbers of wealth generation, wage generation happening in families from women. Raja Lakshmi Joshi, now let me take up a case in point example, right? So that's the theory. The theory is we want to make women financially empowered. One way is that the government schemes, they should be the beneficiaries. The toilet in their name, the Ujjwala cylinder in their name, the ghar in their name, the Mudra loan in their name. Now let's look at this as an example. The drones, which Sumitra ji just pointed out. Now, the object is, can we take women, give them a drone, which can be used to, spray pesticide or insecticide or other things, or fertilizer, which is used to farmers, train them, and then make it a viable scheme. So you're seeing modern day technology, which is transforming then the lives of the farmers and convenience to them and empowering women at the same time. Is this a lucky coincidence, something anecdotally clever, or does it tell us that thinking has changed?
Yes, Rishabh, that is exactly what I was going to tell you, that, there is another thing about Skill India also. And again, along with the drones, there is definitely a thought being given. I mean, that was definitely there, that training is definitely a part of it also. So that is also there. And another thing is, another mention should be made about, these self-help groups. Let me tell you that more than 7 crore women have joined these self-help groups. So, so that is the reason why they are getting so much importance also. So now, and they have, just imagine that they are definitely making a lot of progress, because they have taken loans more than 6.5 lakh crores. So that, 6.5 lakh crores is a huge amount for self-help groups. So that means they are making huge progress. So, they are getting skilled and they are getting the benefits of the care also, as was mentioned. And then, everything is being taken care of. So they have a roof on their heads. They have Anganwadi, they have that those schemes also, the care schemes. And then they have
now. I just want to put. Sorry to interrupt you, because I'm short of time. We've got a couple of minutes left, and I want to cover 2 more things. And so here's the premise. Okay, the premise of something which can be called the inclusion economy. Now, if you are saying that there is for example, an insurance sector in the country, okay, by the very act of providing accident and health insurance to a few hundred million people, you have created a consumer base for the insurance sector which has doubled, tripled, quadrupled in 4 years. Yes, these are not the highest earners, but they are going to be the future high earners, okay, by the very nature of what's happening. So similarly, and Mitali come in on this, we have a banking sector. The banking sector notoriously difficult to function in rural areas, because the nature of the savings and the economics didn't make sense. If somebody wants to put in a deposit of 400 rupees, did it make sense for a private sector bank to operate a branch in that area? It was difficult. So there was a problem, and that creates the chicken and egg, the vicious circle. Because there is no bank, then therefore there is access to no banking services. No access to no banking services, therefore no credit history or no banking association. No credit history, no banking association, definitely can't get an unsecured loan. So you had a vicious cycle. Now, Jan Dhan has tried to end the cycle. Now the record number of Mudra loans, of course every year will be a new record, but we've hit a new one in 2023. Majority of them going to women. So you're making a small decision that we're going to give the micro loans, but a preferential treatment will be given to the woman of the house. How does that fundamentally change power dynamics, financial dynamics in a household?
So I think, Rishabh, firstly, the beauty of the Mudra loan is that it's a collateral-free loan. Now, when a woman entrepreneur, and any woman entrepreneur, right? Even me, I'm a woman entrepreneur. I go to a bank. The first thing they'll ask me is, where are your revenues coming from, right? What is your business plan? Now, a lot of rural women entrepreneurs will not have that business plan because they've been running a local food shop or a papad ki dukan or a pickles business, for example, for a long time, but they don't have a business plan. Then they say, "Acha, theek hai, business plan nahi hai. Give us a collateral, something that you own, right? Your house or a piece of land or even jewelry is, taken as collateral." Now, most of the times, once a woman has given her jewelry, then she doesn't have any agency left in the household, right? That's for safety money. So she will never give it. And the house papers may not be in her name. Now, of course, with Awas Yojana, that's changing, which we talked about. But traditionally, that has not been the case. Mudra loans, the reason for the uptake amongst women is that they don't have the collateral, and therefore Mudra loans present the best option because it's a collateral free loan. I was going through the data just yesterday. The average borrowing amount for a Mudra loan for a woman is 37,000 rupees. That's the smallest loan. The Shishu loan is 50,000 up to 50,000. Women are taking 37,000 on average when you divide the number of transactions by the
Yeah.
loan amount, which is 11 lakh crores.
Yeah.
And that 37,000 rupees, when they invest it in their business, they are able to earn returns of 2x, 3x, 4x for their business.
Okay.
So this is how it's transformational,
Okay.
because it
So
relaxes
when we
that
are okay, and honestly, none of us, certainly not me, not even the best of economists, are being able to comprehend that once the impact of all this kicks in. And I'll give you an example on our last point, and I'll start with Joyita, then end it with our panelists. Joyita, now, a woman in rural India, which is the vast majority of women still in this country, okay, X number of hours per day spent, you only have those many hours in a day of daylight, okay, X number of hours per day spent getting water, X number of hours per day spent collecting firewood. Then the more than sheer inconvenience that if it's daylight hours and you simply want to go to the toilet, you either wait till sunset. I mean, just imagine this. Imagine people watching the broadcast. Imagine this. You are really, sorry to say this, you're really having to hold it for hours because you don't have access to a toilet. Okay? Or if you do, then you have to walk kilometers and waste a lot of time where you and I can just walk into the next room. Now, this frees up labor time. So then when you get the Lakhpati Didi loan or you get the drone, you can learn and spend those number of hours to learn how to operate a drone or buy a cow and milk it and make cheese and butter and sell it. It becomes, these are fundamental things. Imagine if you didn't have a tap in your house or a toilet to go to, Joyita, you and I couldn't function, we couldn't do our jobs.
Absolutely. And you see, once you have a toilet in the house, once you have a house, thanks to this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, once you got a Mudra loan, which in fact, I would say even 20,000 people are taking 15,000 and 20,000 rupees as loan. So all of these, they make you together a productive citizen,
Yes.
a productive member of the society. It's not just for your family, you are contributing. So for example, it impacts your health. It has a positive impact on your health. It has a positive impact on your finances. Automatically, what it happens is that you are not spending money on your health care. You are not spending money going to the next town, visiting a doctor, trying to cure yourself. So all these things, the more time you can give towards your work, that increases automatically. It's like a cycle. The money also comes in. So what happens is that you become a full, I mean, you are not only, you're helping your family, automatically everybody is benefiting from it. Your children are, your husband is, maybe your in-laws are, everybody is benefiting.
Okay.
So automatically the whole family is, I would say.
I've seen this, and something that we have not put over here, of course, is sports. Now, there are states in this country, especially in North India, okay, where because the daughter is getting a sports scholarship, she's not only then getting money from the sports scholarship, but then she's earning the name of the village. because when you win medals, then you are recognized. The big ministers, president come and award you. You earn respect for the family, respect for the village. Entire logic on having daughters completely changes. Okay, so entire logic of women in rural areas change as financially empowered persons, productive people, which was a mindset change, which we keep crying about, that society needs mindset change. Because you change mindsets, you increase respect, you increase confidence, you increase respect and you increase confidence, you reduce crimes. When people value women differently, look at women differently within a society, all of these impacts, all the social indicators that are countless. Hopefully what has happened, and 2023 is one of those years, hopefully what has happened is that you've put some of those puzzle pieces, that this unleashes something, and when it unleashes something, then it's a wave of its own. That's not government to do anything. These women in their hundreds of millions are now out in the labor force. They're hungry for a profit. They want a better house. They want good education for their children. They want good health. Now they want they want a car, they want a scooty. They become consumers and they change the face of the country. It's happening.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.